The secret has been revealed on the unique tool behind Wes Anderson's quirkiest scenes, and many of his stars describe it as a game-changer. Mia Threapleton, who plays Sister Liesel in the film, revealed that Anderson heavily relies on his previous work and experience in animation to bring his live-action films to life. He makes an animated version of the film. It's a series of storyboards that are shot by shot, frame by frame, she said in an interview. He even employs people to portray the different voices of these characters, giving it a sense of style and perspective. He sometimes then presents it to the actors directly to give them an understanding of where the film is going and how it will look. It's like a Wes Anderson blueprint that shows the actors, shot by shot, what the scenes are going to look like, as well as how the pacing of the film is going to be, to give them an idea of how the story plays out. It's a valuable tool that keeps many A-list actors coming back to work with the Academy Award-winning director. Many fans are fascinated by Anderson's decision to always bring back actors throughout his filmography and give them new roles, almost like an anthology setting. When asked about his decision always to bring back actors, Anderson said his inspiration comes from Swedish director Ingmar Bergman. Anderson always liked the idea of having a stock company, like a theater troupe, to act in his films. He admits that over the years, he's gotten to work with some of his favorite actors, and he gets very excited to write new roles for them or invite them back to work with him. Some of those actors include Tom Hanks, Scarlett Johansson, Benicio del Toro, and Jeffrey Wright, who return for the Phoenician Scheme. With every Wes Anderson film comes a new face among the many famous faces, and the Phoenician Scheme is no different. 24-year-old Mia Threapleton makes her leading role debut as Sister Liesel. Threapleton is actually the daughter of Academy Award-winning actress Kate Winslet and has appeared in other projects before, including Starz' Dangerous Liaisons and Apple TV's The Buccaneers. But this is her first major film role in Hollywood. Del Toro had already been cast as the main protagonist, and so it was crucial that the actress starring opposite him could maintain the same energy and charisma as the Oscar-winning star. When we auditioned her, I remember there was this moment that we locked eyes and she didn't blink, Del Toro said in an interview. When she walked out of the audition, Del Toro had told Anderson that she was perfect for the role. She can go toe-to-toe with him. And even though she's a bit shorter, he thought she was terrific. As Anderson said in an interview, she's not a towering person physically, but the way she occupies the space in these scenes, she has just this presence and solidity. It's a full-circle moment for the actress who has made it a goal of hers to work with Anderson after seeing his film Moonrise Kingdom. In order to prepare for her role as a nun, Threapleton, who is not Catholic, researched a lot by talking to a deacon. She also worked alongside the film's costume designer, Milena Canonero, who is originally from Italy, and studied Catholicism with her. But Threapleton isn't the only newcomer to the Anderson film universe. Another one of the co-leads is Michael Cera, who plays the part of Bjorn, a bug-obsessed Norwegian tutor who is in love with Threapleton's characters. But the Phoenician Scheme wasn't supposed to be Cera's first film with Anderson. The actor had to miss an opportunity to be in the director's previous film, Asteroid City, because of the birth of his son. But the actor has constantly tried to pitch himself for a role ever since he was a young star in Juno. Cera easily related to the role because of the father-daughter relationship at the center of it. Although Cera's character isn't a dad necessarily, he poses as a tutor for Corda's 9 sons in the film. The opportunity to portray a father-like figure of sorts chokes him up and is very emotionally satisfying for him, especially after becoming a 2-time father himself. The Oscar-winning director had originally teased the Phoenician Scheme as a three-hander and character study that might read as a globe-trotting adventure. Exploring complex family relationships is familiar territory for this director. Yet Anderson explains that he and Coppola initially had a very different concept in mind. Their original idea was a much darker tale centered around a powerful industrialist, someone indifferent to the consequences of his sweeping decisions on workers and the environment. Anderson described the early concept as focusing on a man who defies death itself, accumulating wealth, influence, and resources, yet remaining emotionally and spiritually untouched. It was about a man who experiences everything but changes nothing, he said in an interview. However, that direction shifted dramatically. By the end of writing the first scene, the story had taken on a more surreal, almost biblical tone, featuring a subplot where the character Corda faces divine judgment in an ethereal courtroom overseen by Bill Murray playing God. Ultimately, though, the central narrative evolved into a more intimate story, a heartfelt portrayal of the bond between a father and daughter, brought to life by Threapleton and Del Toro. I think if I didn't have a 9-year-old daughter, this character Corda probably wouldn't have a daughter, confessed Anderson in an interview. He also incorporated a lot of inspiration from his late father-in-law, Fouad Mikhail Malouf, in crafting Corda. He heavily observed the relationship between him and his wife, and a lot of inspiration came from certain behaviors of the characters, and even their relationship was rooted in reality. Anderson fans know that his films have a unique visual language and distinct level of quirkiness that make them unique. But unlike previous films, he and his team decided to build custom sets instead of sourcing them as in previous films. One of the oldest film studios in the world, Studio Babelsberg in Potsdam, Germany, housed many of these sets, which Anderson previously used for the Grand Budapest Hotel a decade earlier. Production designer Adam Stockhausen said that there were a lot of interior spaces on this film where it felt natural that we'd film in a studio. But Wes also really liked the theatricality of building everything in a soundstage. This came into play when Stockhausen and Anderson had to design a set that the director had never dreamt up before: Heaven. In fact, the Heaven set where Corda visits in a series of dream sequences was one of the most difficult sets to design. They tried different versions of Heaven according to Stockhausen: a white void, churches in Berlin, a photo bubble-like set, but nothing was working. In the end, they built a small altar in an area of the studio with a greenhouse roof that made a beautiful, soft, glowing light that gave it a heavenly feel. A lot of the religious imagery used in the set, including churches, was inspired by the work of surrealist filmmaker Luis Buñuel. But let's take a look at some of the other iconic sets from the film and their inspirations. In an early sequence, Corda takes a bath as his staff comes in and out. The overhead shot we see is an ode to Scarface director Brian De Palma. Anderson had a strong idea from the beginning for the exact layout and where the bathtub would be situated to achieve this shot, and Stockhausen and set decorator Anna Pinnock worked around that. Another film inspiration set was Marseille Bob's nightclub, which was built on the soundstage at Babelsberg and is a direct reference to the 1954 film Touchez pas au Gresby. Corda's residence is probably one of the most iconic sets from the film. His palazzo-inspired residence is full of fine art, which was actually sourced, and many of the paintings we see are real. Curator Jasper Sharp worked alongside Anderson and Pinnock to borrow real masterpieces, including a Renoir piece that once belonged to Greta Garbo and a piece by René Magritte. Going with the sense of realism, the Egyptian Revival Hotel in the film had every hieroglyph designed by Erica Dorn and Lucille Gouvion and then hand-painted. Anderson has a long history of using miniatures in his films, and he once again collaborated with Simon Weisse to create the optical illusions for the audience. In this case, the blown-apart chunks of a plane we see later in the film were actually miniatures built rather than a full-scale plane. What made it most difficult for Stockhausen and the set builders was that the plane needed to be small enough to fit behind the actors in a shot, but also big enough so it would seem lifelike. It becomes a mathematical problem to some degree, explained Stockhausen, but Weisse and his team were able to design the miniature just in time, giving the film the whimsical Anderson touch while also rooting it in realism. Another miniature designed for the film was the model illustrating each phase of Corda's scheme.